Yo, 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 what it do? What it be, y'all? It's your boy. Hey, ENT repping the game, gang. Y'all know we don't play none of that. Use a lame, you can't hang, all of that. Bang, bang, and I'm back again. And let me just apologize in advance because this is going to be a little bit more of like a rant slash think piece, if you will. And I may or may not stray from the original point or topic, but just bear with me, all right? So when I first started this channel, I originally started it because I was planning on trying to start a career in stand-up comedy. COVID had just shut everything down, and I figured why not start a YouTube channel in the meantime. That way I could talk about things I'm interested in, play some video games, and maybe crack a joke or two along the way. Type shit. And I've always wanted to entertain people, make people laugh. I've always been a fan of comedy, but then I started to study it. Learned how to write punchlines, string them together, how to structure jokes into punchlines. And I realized that it's a lot harder than it looks. I ain't even going cap. But I was studying all of these comedians, how they got their breaks, how they started in hole-in-the-wall clubs or bars, and eventually ended up on SNL or became a famous writer or a comedy actor or something like that. I got lost down the rabbit hole of comedy. And after attempting to write my own comedy set, like I said, it was a lot harder than it looks. I, to this day, have not written what I think is a good enough 5 to 10 minute set to get up on stage and feel confident like I'm going to make people laugh with it. So. But at this point right now, I ain't even really been focused on stand-up comedy. And recently, just a lot of the stand-up comedians that I looked up to or, studied a lot of, kind of, they've been letting me down. And here's why. How a lot of people look at Joe Rogan, that's how I was looking at people like Bill Burr and Dave Chapelle in particular. I don't really see Rogan like that. We'll get to that in a minute. But he works in all this, trust me. Bill Burr and Dave Chapelle have always found a way to simplify the chaos happening in America, simplify it, and spin it in a way where people could not only see the ridiculousness of current events, but they would also give you some witty, hard-hitting punchlines that really made you think. Recently, though, those two in particular have not only let me down, but I'm sure they've let down tons of their fans with how they just be kind of fence riding. And it's not even kind of sitting high on the fence right now. At least that's just how I'm perceiving it. Now, they are either still trying to convince us, and they may even be trying to convince themselves that they're still on the ground with us. But there's a clear disconnect. Joe Rogan has been doing the same thing for years too. I'll get to Rogan, like I said, in a second, but recently, Dave Chapelle dropped a surprise stand-up special on Netflix, and I'm gonna be real. I've watched it 3 times, from beginning all the way to the finish. And here's just a couple of things that I've picked up on. Like in Dave's special, just when you think that he's picked a side and will stand on it, he does something or says something that puts him right back on that fence. And what I mean by that is, from the opening of the special, he comes out wearing a long sleeve button down shirt with the number 7 on the back and the last name Kaepernick above the 7, to note to the former NFL quarterback who got expelled or exiled from the league for standing up for racial injustices. For those of you who haven't seen it, I encourage you to watch it and form your own opinions, because I came into watching it already biased against Dave Chapelle. I'm not even going cap. Him not being able to let go of his critics pointing out that for someone as smart as Dave to turn black people's struggles and LGBTQ people's struggles into some kind of struggle Olympics is just weird. And I didn't call him out online, but a lot of his other fans did. And it might have struck a nerve a little bit. I think it definitely did, because Dave has not been able to stop talking about it. And it raises another thing of accountability with comedy and jokes, and we can get into that maybe another time. If I get some time at the end, we could talk about it. But this is the first part where Dave decides to sit on the fence, because instead of taking his criticism in stride, he just can't let it go and had to double and triple down on these sentiments. Not just with these jokes, but he went to the very infamous comedy festival in Riyadh. And for anybody who doesn't know, that's in Saudi Arabia. And it wasn't just Dave. A lot of your favorite comedians probably went. A lot of famous comedians went. And that's why it kind of undermines his dramatic closing. Because to just kind of start his show, he was already joking about how he was a stooge for Saudi Arabia. So it's hard to believe Dave taking a stand at the end of his show against Israel and Donald Trump, when his morals and principles seem to have no consistency on its face. And I'll get into that. Dave can take a stand against Trump and Israel, yet he can't understand why people were upset at him for taking a bag to perform for the Saudis, or trying to critique the LGBTQ community in its entirety by giving an anecdotal story which really doesn't have any prevalence to the entire community. Let me again preface this whole thing, preface however you say it, by saying that both Dave Chapelle and Bill Burr are still two of my favorite comedians. They have a legendary catalog and bodies of work, and to this day they are still dropping content or specials that are very thought-provoking. Whether or not they stand up to their older works is up for debate. In my opinion, Dave's older work is a lot better than what he's put out recently, but you know, that's to each their own. Now, the reason why I'm disappointed in Dave and Bill Burr especially is because they're supposed to be they've curated these facades that they were these blue collar comedians not afraid to tell these white collar jokes in a less pretentious way than a suit wearing Colbert or Jon Stewart or even Trevor Noah, and make current events palatable to the common man. And like I said, Dave's specials have been very thought-provoking. And in my opinion, maybe I'm just tripping again, he just seems to be playing this character of like a black Carl Sagan, or like a bootleg James Baldwin. That's kind of the vibe I get, but it just falls flat in certain areas. And you know, with them both performing in Riyadh and then doubling down on it, that facade that they curated has all been shattered. It really seems like both of them can't decide whether they want to be the Gandhi of comedy or go just full Schneider or Michael Rappaport. Now, the reason why I'm just kind of critiquing Dave and Bill, and I'm not singling out and adding in someone like Kevin Hart, who also performed at the festival, is because, number one, the other comedians were either already far right leaning Saudi Arabian supporters, or they were already in it for the bag to begin with. No matter what, they were already kind of failing comedians, or lesser known, that just were kind of doing it for the bag anyways. And number two, look at who Kevin Hart surrounds himself with. Look at his track record. He hangs out with The Rock and Shaq. Those two people would do a commercial for the devil if it meant great royalties and a big bag, Kevin Hart performing for the Saudis is definitely no surprise. Again, it may seem like I'm being inconsistent, and that's fair. Maybe I am. But I just didn't clutch my pearls at Kevin Hart performing for the Saudis the way I did for Burr, who has been critical of people performing for genocidal regimes in the past, like Beyonce. And even Dave Chapelle, who, again, you would just think, Dave, you don't really need that money. How much money do you really need? You know, how was it worth your reputation and all that? But we'll get to that. Like I said, for Bill and Dave or any other comedian that performed at that festival and then wants to paint it as some kind of comedy missionary work or even a covert operation to secretly get the Saudis to lighten their stances on the current human rights violations they are committing, it's delusion on a cosmic level. And Bill, Burr, and Dave must have talked, or some of those guys must have discussed what they were going to tell their fans in America, because some of their alibis and reasoning are oddly similar. If it's not the first two excuses that I just mentioned, then you get the excuse of, well, how many human rights violations does the U.S. commit? Well, let's go ahead and kill that stupid fucking excuse and deflection right here, right now, with a little bit of a history lesson. Comedy and stand-up comedy in its modernity, however you say it, in its modern form, it's often attributed to early vaudeville shows and Mark Twain. In its antiquity, every culture in some form has a joke or whimsical storytelling traditions. Sometimes it becomes folklore, fairy tales. Sometimes it becomes a joke. Sometimes it becomes a religion. You know, pick your poison. However, let's go back to Europe. In the medieval times, we can point to something called the court jester. And the court jester had this form of immunity called the jester's privilege. And it was through this privilege that Martin Luther, not Martin Luther King, the original Martin Luther, was able to critique the Catholic Church. And through that critique, the foundations of Lutheranism would be founded and created. The court jester in medieval times held a significant role in responsibilities of not only being the one who could keep it 100 with the king, even, you know, right and wrong. I'm gonna let you know, brother, and you know, I'll still make you laugh and shit. We still cool, but I'm gonna let you know you was fucking up, gang. And he also had the responsibility of riding on the front lines of the battlefield, mocking the ops and naming new Zaza packs from the dead mans. Now, if you don't believe they was getting blitzed back then, I encourage you to look up the origins of the assassins, aka the Hashashins. You feel me? Now, fast forward to 2026, and we got comedians signing papers saying they can't mock the royal family, Muslims, or any of the war crimes and human rights violations in Saudi Arabia. Then they come over here and tell us how hard it is to tell jokes over here in America and how it's so much easier to get their racist and xenophobic shit off in Saudi. But it's only because they were trying to bring comedy and freedom of speech over there, right? You know, give me a fucking break. Again, this is where accountability comes into play. Take your bag of blood money and save me the self-righteous court jester bullshit at this point, gang. You feel me? Does America have problems? And are we committing international war crimes with this regime as we speak? Yes. Here is the difference, though. Burr, Chapelle, Hart, and all those others that performed at that festival can't sit there and criticize that America's billionaires are this evil conglomerate while accepting and performing for royal trillionaires that staged a coup on American soil and then had an American journalist killed for criticizing the regime. Where do we draw the line? If Trump wanted to do a comedy festival bigger than the Saudis, you know, would they take that bag? If Trump offered a comedian to literally dress up like a clown and tell jokes with a government salary and bennies, but they just couldn't, you know, criticize him or any of the things that he was doing, would they take that bag? It's a genuine question. Now, I'll make this last point too. When you accept money to go to Riyadh and do that festival, you're accepting money from the royal family. Now, you could say you performed for the people, but WCW, and I know a lot of y'all don't know what that is. World Championship Wrestling went, I believe it was to North Korea for a wrestling event. It is still, I believe to this day, the wrestling event with the largest crowd ever for a wrestling show. Guess how much money they made. It's not the highest selling. They didn't make the most money that night. You know why? Because everybody was forced to go. And you can say, well, we didn't just perform for the royal family. There were regular people there. They were forced to go, brother. They was laughing because they had to. They wasn't laughing with you or at you. They was laughing because they had to. If you don't laugh, then motherfuckers might not come back. You feel me? So when you accept that money from the royal family, that is entirely different than accepting money from a third-party club to go perform in, whether it be a stadium, whether it be the fucking Laugh Factory. It's not the president or that regime paying you. So that's another big difference. Now, here's where Joe Rogan fits into all this. Now, what I think him and most of the comedians that he tries to push are fucking hacks. I think Cat Williams, for the most part, was right. He hangs around with comedians that ain't never been funny. The most funniest guy he hangs out with is what? The guy, Joey... I don't know, bro. He was in Longest Yard. Joey something, I don't know. But again, that's how memorable bro is. But for years... you know, he was able to play off this centrist, enlightened centrist gimmick, you know. And again, I'm not trying to ignore Joe's influence in podcasting or bringing other comedians up, like Kill Tony, who is also bringing other comedians up. But Kill Tony's a hack too. Kill Tony's trash as fuck. And some of the other comedians that even Joe has pushed, like Brendan Schaub. Boo. Fucking trash, bro. But again, Joe was playing this enlightened centrist role forever. He was a Bernie bro. He, you know, just wanted to cook his beef jerky, promote gun rights. And he was even on the side of LGBT, rights for a few years. But COVID-19 changed all that. Joe went from being an enlightened centrist who was maybe a little critical of the government, avid hunter, vocal and advocate for gun rights and all that. COVID-19 and his personal usage of ivermectin to treat it, that was his descent or unmasking of not being that enlightened centrist, but a far-right apologist and borderline propagandist at this point. Like, for years, Joe was able to play this sanitized and, dare I say, sane version of what Alex Jones once was, if Alex Jones ever was sane. Yet you could say that he has seen the truth for himself, and this regime has killed a lot of his credibility. That is purely on Joe, though, because he had the director of the FBI, Chapelle, in the same room as him while Elon Musk is live tweeting that Donald Trump was in the Epstein files before they ever dropped. Keep that in mind. Before they ever dropped, Elon Musk tweeted that, and he also insinuated that he helped Trump, pretty much helped Trump guarantee an election win. He was right about one thing. Was he right about the other? Now, again, Kash Patel told Joe on his show while this is happening, yeah, I'm not going to comment on that. And Joe folded faster than Alex Jones could say they're turning the frogs gay, y'all. Fucking pathetic. And when compared to some of the other comedians' body of work, Joe belongs, again, nowhere near the greats. No, I shouldn't even be in the same conversation of topic. They barely share the same stratosphere of, technically Joe's a comedian, but nowhere near on par with the Dave Chappelles and Bill Burr. Like I said, they still have legendary bodies of work and catalogs. Still great comedians. Still think Dave Chappelle's last special was pretty good. But now anytime they get on these golden soapboxes and preach against American billionaires and politicians, it kind of comes with a grain of salt, knowing that their coffers are filled with Saudi Arabian blood money. Joe Rogan's pockets aren't filled with foreign money, but either he's being paid by this regime to shut the fuck up and look the other way, or he's dumber than anybody and I could have possibly imagined. Maybe I was wrong for thinking that an entertainer's values couldn't be bought, but the phrase every man has his price rings true more and more every day. Shout out to Ted DiBiase. I'm sure if he goes to jail and his son do, they'll get pardoned by Trump real soon. And I'm done with these free thinkers or pseudo intellectuals like Chapelle, who are always either really vague in what they're trying to say, or they say one thing and do another. And before I go on, I will say that his joke about Cassie was extremely well crafted. But I'm not trying to white knight here, because I think Cassie did some very foul things too. She accepted some payoffs and got her bread while the getting was good, and then decided to testify, which, I mean, she should have, brave, but you also have to acknowledge all the wrong that she did along the way, because she thought that Puff was going to put her in a position of power. That's a whole nother topic. But I mean, yeah, you threw in some baby oil jokes, but then you caveat it with, oh, like, I went to Puff's house and he saved my life. And then you get into this Jack Johnson monologue, and you kind of, listen, I'm not going, maybe I misinterpreted what Chapelle was saying, but I literally watched it before I recorded this, and it's, you kind of hinting at Puff Daddy being a part of some grand scheme to keep the black man down. And yeah, man, I'm not sure if I really support all that. If there's evidence and he did what he did and he had to testify on what he did and some of the things that he was doing. Yeah, bro, I don't know if that's a whole grand conspiracy, because they just got Weinstein and then you see this Epstein guy getting taken down. I don't think it's really, I think they're just trying to fucking arrest some fucking sickos finally. Now, maybe they let him get away with it for a little bit too long. We can discuss that another time, but Puff Daddy is one of those people that genuinely, let me call him by his government name, Sean Combs is genuinely one of those people that should not be free walking the streets in any capacity right now. And I'm going to stand on that. And and after watching that video, after it dropped with Cassie, I don't know if I could still call somebody like that my homie. I don't know if I could still try and caveat and defend what he was doing. And one last thing before I go. Charlie Kirk. He sat there and said, yeah, they're comparing Charlie Kirk to Dr. King, which everybody knows is fucking crazy. But then he backtracks this, right? He backtracks this and then is like, yeah, and then I met Nipsey Hussle. And when Nipsey Hussle got killed, I can relate to the Charlie Kirk fans, because I know how it feels to watch someone that you kind of look up to or are really close with get shot down by a gun-toting nobody. Bro, this was a wild bridge to try and gap. To compare the death. After you just was comparing Charlie Kirk and Martin Luther King's death, to compare Charlie Kirk's death to fucking Nipsey Hussle is wild. It's fucking wild to me. I'm sorry, y'all. That's just such a wild... like I said, just a wild medium to find somehow. He's somewhere between, Charlie Kirk is somewhere between MLK and Nipsey Hussle, y'all, because they were all gunned down somehow. Well, what the fuck are we talking about, bruh? It's certainly head scratching, and it's just a wild connection to make. It sounds again like just another way to preach from the fence. Again, though, maybe I misunderstood. Maybe I didn't really know what he was trying to say, because he kept it so vague, and he was, well, if you don't really know the conspiracy, well, then you really shouldn't say that you know it. Whole bunch of fucking yapping and nothing, brother. Like, what the it sound good. It sound good, but when you really think about it, what the fuck are you talking about? And maybe I'm missing it. Somebody put it in the comments on what I am missing, because this is how I'm interpreting it from my perception and perspective. But yeah, leave a comment, leave a like, dislike. I don't really know. This is just how I was feeling watching the new comedy special, and then watching Bill Burr crash out on his podcast. He just seems really bored since that whole Riyadh thing, and he's gotten backlash, and I'm sure he probably reads some of the comments. A lot of these people claim, oh, I don't read comments. You're getting them from somewhere, gang. You get with all you're gonna sit there and say I don't read internet comments, but then you do like a 10-minute riff on all these people were saying this online. It direct contradictions, y'all. But there's like a minute left in the video. I hope y'all enjoyed it again. Subscribe if you're new here. I got go ahead and ring the bell too, so you can stay tuned for all the hot content that I got dropping soon. Yeah, I'll be back with some more shit. I got some live streams to do and to start. I got to get back kind of on track. I've been busy again with just work and trying to get into the swing of doing other shit. Trying to actually make this and write. Gotta do some research from videos, honestly, but I'm just yapping at the end of this, y'all. Make sure I kill some time. But again, hope y'all enjoyed. Be safe. Don't get smoked. This has been your boy, A-N-T, out. Peace.
You win. I'm up for a rematch anytime.